Yo, Scott, welcome back to the show. We've got Surf NVS with us today.
Yeah. Look, Finns, right? Surf NVS, Naked Vikings, Leif and Jamin. Love those guys. And you and I both have new surfboards on the way. And I got a big package right here. Let me just show it to you. A large package of NVS fins. Amongst them, I'm just going to randomly pull some out here. Oh, look at that. This is the Rusty Twin Fin set. And I've got quad sets. I got Twinser sets. I even got some newfangled stuff that I'm not allowed to show anyone, but I'll tell you about it later. Yeah.
That is a big package of fins. It's as if you've never owned any fins in your life and they are giving you an entire quiver.
I am forever appreciative of our sponsorship. Look, I have fins from everybody. I have FCS fins. I have Future fins. I have great fins from my friend Chuck at Ames, Chuck Ames, True Ames Fins. I'm a big fan of all the fin companies. It just so happens that Naked Viking stepped up and sponsored our show. So, yeah.
You get to ride a lot of Naked Vikings.
I get to ride a lot of different fins, and many of them are Naked Vikings, NVS, surfnvs.com.
Look, fin design and shapers and surfers have all kind of built on one another over the years anyways. It kind of is a collaborative process in that way. But specific to NVS, they have collabs, of course, with great shapers like Mitzfin, Rusty that you just pointed out, Skip Fry, Stu Kenson, Shane Horan, Dan Mann, Gary Linden, Greg Weber, Josh Hall, and on and on and on, but also professional surfers. And it looks like you already got your fill of fins, but I want to show you a set of fins that they also have that I was unaware of until just recently. And that is these Ross Williams collaborative fins. And I know you love this setup.
Yeah,
Can you see my screen?
I can.
So this is called the Albatross, but Tross being capital ROSS, of course, for Ross. But this is the setup that you like, the twin with the nub in the back for stabilization.
Yeah, and wow, a really interesting kind of sleek, narrow tip on that tall twin fin set.
Yeah, what they said was they've basically developed these to scale down the front of the fin and then thinning out that tip. So, and then increased the area of the center fin.
Yeah,
So
that's really smart.
it used to be like big, big twins with a small nub. This is basically thinner tip on the twins and scaled down and then scaling up the nub. So kind of in between the traditional setup with a small nub and a thruster, this kind of lands right in that zone. So
Well, those look, I got to admit,
too late. You already got your order.
well, those look, I mean, let me say, I like the idea behind this. I love the idea of widening that little back nub trailer. There's way more area there, and then just sort of making it sexy. That big twin fin's a little bit narrower.
Yeah. Well, again, Ross Williams collab fin. They said that Ross uses these on smaller waves and waves with more open face. Feels like a blend between a thruster and a twin, so they're more maneuverable without feeling too loose, basically. So check them all out at surfnvs.com. And then also realwatersports.com. They actually carry NVS fins, and they're also in the midst of a spring sale. So take advantage. I'm going to pull up another screenshot for you, Scott. Look at these discounts. You want to read them off to me off my screen?
Slater Designs, the S Boss, the Tomo Neutrino, the Machado Sunday, the Maurice Cole Reverse V Twinser. Oh my, that one's exciting. They're all exciting.
But look at the discounts for the spring sale.
$200 off.
$200 off the Maurice Coles, 40% off those the Firewires that you were mentioning, Tomo and the Slater Designs S-Boss. So deep discounts at Real Water Sports for the spring sale.
That Maurice Cole Reverse V Twinser is not going to last long. And if you see me turning to my left and typing away, it could be because I'm going in to order that board.
He would be typing in realwatersports.com for all of your water sport needs.
As we see some movement at the takeoff zone, it's Kelly Slater grabbing rail.
Yeah, a guy. Welcome, everybody. It's Spit. It's the Spit Podcast. It's David and Scott, and we're talking all things surf and some other stuff as well. And it's March, David. It's March 19th. It's the beginnings of the NCAA March Madness basketball tournament today. And we're also just a few weeks away from the very beginning, event number one of the World Surf League's WCT Championship Tour season for 2026. So we've got a lot going on, David.
And it's episode 1 of our new series, Scott in the Dark.
Should I turn the light on?
I mean, I don't know. Maybe our YouTube fans would appreciate being able to see you.
There we go.
Thought we were going with an after dark theme for the show or something. You were going to get a little more salacious than normal.
Oh my God. There's no, I'm over 60, you know, like I'm going to need a blue pill to get salacious. You know what I'm saying?
Your jokes often have a little bit of a blue vibe.
Wow. Okay. I don't know. You
blue
stumped
comedy.
me. I don't know where to take that. I feel like we're improving, and yeah, blue. Look, I've got blue hair, you know, like let's improv.
The CT event is starting in 2 weeks, but we also have new qualifiers for the CT. That is
I
all
know
locked up
that's
after
sort of the
Newcastle.
big news, right? And sadly, my guy Levi Slauson missed out by just one. He's 11th, and he made a run. He had to beat. He was in the semis. I think it was Kauli Vaast. He had to beat in the semis to make it into the final. He might have had to win the whole event. Somebody told me to, but there were some crazy CT qualifications, on order there during that last day, finals day of the event. And here's the thing: Levi's in 11th. I'll just focus on him real quick. He's going to get called up. It's my opinion that he's going to get called up, and we'll see him on. He'll get his teeth wet on the CT for the first time this season. We'll see how he does. But tell me about some of the other qualifiers. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think it's actually, let's talk about that event first real quick, because you talk about how close he was, basically 3 waves away, essentially, from potentially qualifying. There was a number of situations like that came right down to the wire, as I suppose it always does at the end, the final event of the season. But what most impressed me about this rookie class is how they deliver in clutch moments. Because I was not watching the event in real time, but ultimately I would see these kind of close calls on Instagram, and it's so-and-so needs an 8, and they get the wave, and they're pumping down the line. And it's like, they're pumping forever. There's a section coming. They're looking for there's all this anticipation and buildup, but ultimately when they get the section, they do a big full rotation air or a big straight air, I think with Levi Slauson's to make the cut for the previous heat. So, and it wasn't just one guy. It was like everybody who had an opportunity to executed. And so when it came down to Levi losing or people who didn't make the cut, it wasn't because their performance didn't make it. It was because somebody else made their cut and then they bumped them out, you know? So on the whole, the class performs in clutch moments. And I'm not saying that the CT surfers don't do that or the legacy guys won't, but I think that this really adds a level of kind of cutthroatedness that they're going to bring to the tour. They're not flappable.
I would agree with you. I would suggest to you too that what we're seeing here is a narrowing of the gap between the CS surfers and the CT surfers. And this is happening in a lot of sports because the young guys are getting so much more coaching. By the way, with ISA and Olympic qualifying, we're seeing those guys get surf against CT level surfers a lot. And Kauli Vaast is a great example of this, right? Our gold medal winner from the last Olympics. He could easily win the CT. I mean, I know that seems like a stretch, but when was the last time a rookie came on tour and won the whole thing? And you're telling me Kauli Vaast can't do that? I think he can because of what we're talking about. We all know that they have the physical fortitude. They have the physical ability. They're all incredible surfers. And as you and I have talked about many times, when you get to this level, it's about who's got the mental game. And I sense that the mental game, there's a narrowing of the gap. I don't think these guys are afraid when they pull Gabe Medina in a heat. They just go, well, it's time to go big. Let's go.
Yeah, and they land, you know, they execute. Yeah, we've seen Kauli Vaast not only do that in the Olympics, but we've seen him do it in CT events already as a wild card. So he's an interesting example. I would not bet on him to win a title this year, maybe an event for sure. But
this feels like a moment, you know. Like,
I know.
We need to throw down the gauntlet right here. This feels like, okay, let's place a bet.
Okay, well, we always forget about our bets by the end of the season.
But don't tell people that.
No, but here's what you should do then if you want to put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah.
Pick him for Survival League Event 1 at Bells.
Wow. That's not a good strategy. I'd much rather place a long-term bet with David, my co-host, for X amount, whatever it is. And
then forget about it.
Yeah. How do we got to make notes. I got to make notes on my sheet here.
By the way, I just pulled up Survival League because last week we mentioned them and didn't know what the prize purse was. I just looked it up. It's $7,000 for the one winner and a 3-board quiver from Panda Surfboards. Shout out Blake at Panda, which, by the way, Blake also, I believe, has a collab fin with Surf NVS. And then there's also prizes for the Women's League, which is $1,000 cash and 1 Panda Surfboard. So I think it's only $25 to get in, maybe $20. $25 membership for the entire season, one-time sign up. So it's $25 for the whole season, not per event. And you have to get in before the event. The first heat gets called on. So presumably could be April 1st.
Well, I'll say this. Kauli Vaast is one guy you should not take at Bells Beach. The first event of the season, rookie on tour going backside at Bells. I love me some Kauli Vaast, but there's so many better options. Of course, Ethan Ewing sort of being the number one option, in my opinion. And there's a ton more. I mean, how about Jack Robinson? How about Leonardo? How about some just like Leonardo sort of reminds me of Ross Williams in a way, you know, like great surfer, is going to show up. He's competitive as all get out. And he's going to post scores, but you're never like, you know, oh yeah, did you see Ross and Leo just dropped a clip? Let's go watch it. You know what I mean? They're incredible. I'm not poo-pooing these guys. I'm just saying that they're not at the same level, in my opinion, as, you know, the John Florences and the Gabe Medinas. And I don't know. I don't mean to throw shade because that's not what I'm doing, but I'm just saying that they're middle of the pack.
Leo, if you remember, was right outside the top 5. He had a chance to get into the top 5 at the last couple of events last season. But I think to your point, he's a very reliable workhorse, which might make him a great pick for Survival League. However, this narrowing of the gap that you're talking about with these rookies, I think may eliminate guys like Leo. Because when I point to Morgan Siblick, George Pitar, Sammy Pupo, Calum Robson, Mateus Hurdy, Liam O'Brien, all names who qualified, what's the differentiation between them and Leo? There's actually very, very little.
Well, Leo's got an incredible, his experience is through the roof, right?
There's that.
Leo's another guy that, I mean, they're all like this, but I think the best part about Leo's game is his mental game, in my opinion. Like he's gonna chew on it, like, and not let go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
which
you're
these guys
right.
have proven they have too, though. You know.
Leo just got married. Is that a harbinger for good or bad? I don't know.
It's not. I would say great for him, great for them, great for the life. It is a diffusion of focus. So I don't think it bodes well for winning heats and winning a world title. Of course, people have done it, but again, focusing solely on the one prize is a little bit. It's kind of what this requires, actually. But let me go through this list before we get too far into Bells.
Yeah.
Because what's interesting, a lot of them are actually return CT surfers.
Right.
The majority of the men, actually. Kauli Vaast is not, but he has competed on the CT before through wild cards. Eli Hanneman is returning. Obviously, Maui, really, really well-rounded surfer, surfs pipe incredibly, does massive airs, huge power. Morgan Siblick returning. I believe he was on tour for 2 seasons previously. George Pitar just got back on tour. Sammy Pupo, I think he's been on the tour, even though he's only 25, he's been on like 4 times, I think.
Yeah.
I'd have to double check that. Caleb Robson coming back. Liam O'Brien coming back. Mateus Hurdy, who has surfed as a wild card, and he made it super far at the Mexico event a couple of seasons ago. I think he made a semifinal there. Jack Robinson went on to win the event. And then new time, 2 absolute rookies, Oscar Berry, Australian, and then Luke Thompson, who's actually 21 years old from South Africa, and who I almost have 0 exposure to. So I have no idea what to expect from Luke. And he has no CT experience either.
Yeah, it's really interesting, right? All of these guys have been there before for the most part, except for those last 2 that you mentioned. So do the guys that have been there before, that are giving it their second or third swing at the CT, if they don't get results early, are they like deflated? Are they like, oh, here we go again, and then the whole thing just washes out? You know, that's an interesting psychological. I just don't know how they handle it. You know, if at Bell's, like for instance, Samuel Pupo or Morgan Siblick, who's I think expected to do pretty well at Bell's. He's a local. I mean, he's an Australian. He doesn't have to. You know, if he bails, if he doesn't do good in Australia, an Australian that's back on tour, what's his mental? Is he like, is it a deflation? What are your thoughts on that? Do these guys deflate or do they just buck up? And I guess each one's different.
Well, specific to Morgan, deflate, unfortunately. I think Morgan, when he's on point, he looks like Julian Wilson 2.0 to me. And I think Julian Wilson was a world-class A+ surfer and still is. And Morgan looks even like faster and more spry and on point than Julian. And I was talking to, I forget who I was, I remember. Nathan Hedge has worked with Morgan as a coach. And I asked Nathan that exact thing. I'm like, why isn't he winning heats? Why isn't he performing to the level that he did when he was a rookie on tour the first time? And Nathan said specifically, it's just in between his ears. And so I don't know if he's gotten through that and that's why he's now in this position back on tour, or if it's something that will be a perpetual struggle for him. I'd be apprehensive to bet on him if he doesn't do well in Australia. I think he could fall apart.
Yeah, these first couple events, they're very interesting in relation to the guys that don't do good and how they bounce back, or if they do bounce back.
I'm thinking. So prior to this, I was putting Ethan Ewing as my Bell's pick in the Survival League, but now kind of thinking through it, I feel like Morgan is. I'm okay picking Morgan.
Wow, that feels pretty ballsy.
I know.
You know, as an end user, as a player, you don't want to be out after the first event.
No, of course
so you
not.
tend to be a little more conservative.
I know, but the biggest
that's not a conservative pick, in my opinion.
The biggest disruptions in Survival League happen when everybody picks the safe bet and that safe bet loses, and 50% there's been times where 70% of the league gets shed. Yeah. And so you also don't want to be that person. So you're right. He is risky. I just think his surfing ability is so good and he's on a burner right now. And so it could be a sneaky bet. Let me think about it some more. My mood will change.
Yeah. Because you got me looking at Kauli Vaast again. And I'm like, God, that would be. See, Kauli Vaast only works if somebody like Ethan Ewing has a shocker.
Right. Yeah.
You know, the obvious guys that everyone's picking have a shocker.
Yeah. Okay. Let me think more deeply on it. But just a reminder of the rules, by the way, for Survival League is you got to make it through. Well, the rules have changed, but right now you got to make it through the round of 32 on the men's side and the round of 16. So you don't have to win the event. You don't have to do better than your fellow mates. You just have to make it past the round of 32 and you're into the next event, and then you have to do that again in the next event. Once you lose, you're out for the entire season. So,
there's so many interesting storylines here actually when you look at this list. Like Felipe Toledo, up or down after the year's over? He's in eighth.
He's in eighth. I think equal. I think he could do eighth again. I don't see him in the top 5.
Marco Mignot.
Yeah,
Up or
interesting.
down?
So he's sneaky.
Yeah.
The fact that he requalified, you might not have even known,
Exactly.
But he had some unbelievable performances throughout the year. So I think he can move up.
Here's the one that's super interesting to me. Up or down, Joao Chianca,
Where did he finish last year?
18.
He's got to go up. He was coming off of injury last year, and his performances prior to that, I mean, he was in first place like after 3 events, I think the year prior. He is he is a top 5 surfer if he puts together a season.
Didn't he have an injury or something
Yeah,
last
that's
year?
what I was saying. Last year he came off of injury. That's why he's in 18th.
Right. Thank you. Sorry.
It was
I was listening.
It was a head injury. Remember he had a wipeout in a free surf at Backdoor?
Oh, yeah.
They rescued him unconscious, took him to the hospital, and it was like real quiet from his camp for a period of time. But he surprisingly made the recovery, was surfing with a helmet through the season, and I think that's why he was in 18th. If he could do that with a helmet coming out of injury, I think that he should absolutely be a top 5 surfer, actually.
There's something interesting about not starting at pipe, right? When you start at pipe, you get guys like Alan Cleland and Baron Mamiya and even Eli and Joao, guys that you're like, these guys charge massive waves and they're going to probably do well at pipe. But because we're not starting at pipe, we're starting at bells, they could easily leave Australia with bad results.
Yeah,
and all of a sudden, whereas, if you start at pipe, Alan Cleland could be in the semis and be going to Australia and feeling really good about it.
Yeah. So now further refining my picks, I'm picking an Australian regular footer is who I'm going to pick for bells. So I don't know. I like Liam O'Brien. I like Caleb Robson. I like Jack Robinson. I like Ethan Ewing, but I've got it narrowed down to that.
Okay.
And I'll think further on it, but I think that's the safe bet for bells. Anyways, I think exciting class on the male side. Now, I know you're bummed about Levi Slauson not qualifying, but good news, Scott, there is a silver lining. You have a female from Encinitas who did qualify, and that is Alyssa Spencer.
Yeah, Alyssa Spencer, that's great.
I always thought she was San Clemente. Did she move from San Clemente to Encinitas?
I don't know. I think she's one of those seaside gals.
Okay.
I think there's 2 of them, but I don't know much about Alyssa, to be honest with you.
Okay. Well, hometown girl. The list on the women's side, interesting. Couple of really kind of super young. Taya Zabrowski from France, and I think she actually splits her time between France and Tahiti, but she's only 15 years old. So that's kind of incredible. Yolanda
What's her name? Taya Zabrowski?
Taya Zabrowski, yeah.
She's 15?
15.
Oh, man. I hope she's got a good team and family around her. That seems dangerous.
It's a lot. I think we saw Aaron Brooks do it at 16, right?
Yeah.
Yolanda Hopkins at 27 coming out of Portugal. Sally Fitzgibbons back at 35. Francisca Valesco, 22, also from Portugal. So that's 2 new Portuguese additions. The aforementioned Alyssa Spencer, 23, Encinitas. Nadia Estebare from Zarutz, Spain, 25. And then first time ever Israeli surfer joining the CT, Anat Leilor, 25 years old. From Tel Aviv.
See, it's interesting because on the women's side, I think the gap between the seasoned and the newcomers is actually wider.
Yeah, I agree. Well, the previous newcomers set a new standard, and there's no offense to these girls joining. None of these girls, I think would be a real threat to the Caitlin Simmers and the
Carissa,
Aaron
Stephanie.
Brooks.
Oh, the first round of newcomers.
Yeah. But prove me wrong. Let's see it.
Yeah, the other side of it is we don't really know. Like, have you ever seen Annette surf before? Annette Laylor? No,
I have.
I don't know.
I have watched Annette surf before, and
Oh, really?
yeah, she's not at the level of Aaron Brooks and
Yeah.
Caitlin Simmers. No offense, but look, she was raised in Tel Aviv. Has fun waves, but it's not the same as, and she didn't have the access that Aaron Brooks had traveling around the world going to surf Kandui when she was 16 years old. So it's just a little bit of a different breeding ground. And Alyssa Spencer's been on tour before, I believe. So this is her kind of return to tour. So I have seen her surf as well. Of course, we've seen Sally Fitz surf. What's interesting is that on the men's side, you probably didn't notice on your rankings, but Alejo Muniz is still on tour. So we've got, this is like him and Sally Fitzgibbons is like the tour in 2010.
Oh my God. Alejo Muniz has got like salty gray hair in his beard and shit.
I know. So despite all the newcomers, there are still a couple of old timers.
Well, Jordy's got to be over 35, right?
For sure, yeah.
And I feel like Ramsey Buchheim is older.
So I've got a bold prediction for you here.
Yeah.
In addition to these the rookies, I think we're going to have a new Shaper ranking winner this year. Do you want to guess who it could be? And he's not normally in the top 5 ranks even.
Well, let me think here.
And this is this is related to a lot of these new rookies joining. This will help bolster his scores.
Well, then I'm going to say, is it the Brazilian guy who lives in Europe that is Gabe Medina's shaper?
It is not.
Who am I thinking of?
You're thinking Johnny Cabianca from Pumas.
Yeah, Cabianca, yeah.
Nope, it is not.
Okay, who do you got?
JS.
Oh, that makes sense, right? Jason Stevenson.
JS, so he's got Jack Robinson, who's always done well. Jack Robinson has used different boards from different people over time, but he's locked in now with JS.
Yeah.
Kanoe Igarashi is on JS now. Sammy Pupo, Ramsey Buchheim, Mateus Hurdy, Kauli Vaast, Marco Mignot, who you mentioned, all JS riders.
Oh, that's very interesting.
So I think JS, he's always had a presence on tour. Joel Parkinson won on his boards. Julian Wilson rode those boards. He's actually got an incredible roster of surfers, but I never remember having this many. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 surfers that are kind of in that top 20. And some 2 that are potentially in the top 5. So I see him potentially giving a run for the money to the mainstays of Sharp Eye, Biolas, and Channel Islands.
Well, I would love that. I would be stoked if JS won the whole thing, just to shake it up a little bit.
Yeah.
I will say this. I do recall back when I was on terrestrial radio here in San Diego, Baldy and I Baldy's really tight with Jason, and Jason came into the studio and we did a full interview with him, and surprise, surprise, he made me a board, and it was a killer board. Like I remember it being really fast and taking me places where, I just felt like I had my, like my Parco moment on that thing.
Whoa, dude, Parco.
Well, I mean, for me, that's, 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock. Parco's going 12 o'clock. I'm going 9 o'clock, but it feels like 12 o'clock.
When you watch Parco surf and then you use one of his boards, you start to feel the
Yeah, you start to get
connection.
that. Yeah, you start to imagine that maybe it's all true, and then you watch the video and you realize, no, Scott, you're really not that good.
So
That's okay. I have fun.
That was my bold prediction with JS jumping up the Shaper rankings, but I've got a secondary bold prediction that might actually contradict my first.
Yeah.
Jack Robinson falters in Hawaii as a result of not using Eric Arakawa's.
But how do you know that's the case? Like, he always rides Eric's boards. And he won friggin', like, He won huge chopu on
I know.
Eric's board.
I know. I would be shocked if he doesn't ride Eric's boards, but I am under the impression that he will not be riding Eric's in Hawaii's.
Do you have some inside info there?
Only like reading between the lines info.
Oh.
So not hard and fast info. But I talked to Eric when I interviewed Eric prior to the boardroom show for Surf Splendor. I asked him about that exact thing. I was like, all these other shapers kind of lock down athletes for, you know, an entire season or for an entire year. Eric does not. Eric doesn't have like a CT surfer. And also, you in fact get to make boards for shape surfers who would normally be riding their contract boards throughout. And he goes, yeah, you know, I'm starting to reconsider that. I'm starting to rethink it. He goes, it's not really fair for somebody, a shaper who's worked with a surfer all season long, to then break up that relationship essentially just for the Hawaii season. So I'm starting to reconsider that. So I thought that was odd because he does have a long-term, and maybe I'm misquoting him a little bit. So if you want the full quote, maybe go back and check it. But right after he said that is when I saw Jack Robinson sign with JS, because he had been using different surfers' boards or different shapers' boards throughout the course of a season. And so I don't think he ever had like a locked in long-term contract. And it seems like now he does with JS. So I would think that there would be some contractual obligations to use the JS boards wherever he goes in the world. But that's just me reading. I have not seen the contract. I don't know anything other than what Eric told me publicly.
Yeah, that's interesting. A couple things. One, you and I have often discussed how important it is for a surfer to stay with one shaper for the majority of your career. Like, don't jump around.
Yeah.
And the one exception to that, I think, is when you go to Hawaii. I think it's okay to make a slight break. And then I'm starting to think, did Parko ride JS's at Pipe, or did he have other boards? I know he was probably influenced pretty heavily by Andy Irons, who was riding Arakawas.
I'm almost certain he only rode JS's in Hawaii. The only championship winning surfer who has deviated from our advice is Andy Irons.
Well, we shall see. More will be revealed. Hey, I have a who said that?
Hold on, man.
Oh, sorry.
I wanted to say one more thing about Jack. I want to show you Jack surfing. So despite me, no, it's okay. Despite me saying that I think he'll falter in Hawaii as a result of not riding Arakawas, here's him surfing a Hawaiian style wave on a JS. Hold on. I'm having a hard time getting to the right screen.
Where is this? I mean, I know you don't want to tell me exactly, but is it in the Pacific?
I don't know exactly. I mean, honestly, it could be Hawaii. It's kind of hard to tell. Could be some big wave in Australia. They're obviously
Warm water.
Towing in. But he's riding a 6'4".
Must be Australia.
Yeah, I think it is Australia. But, I mean, look at him. This is as gnarly of surfing as you could possibly see on a wave like this. Right?
Yeah, we're watching. By the way, if you're listening, David and I are watching Jack Robinson do some huge gaffing hook turns with carve downs.
This wave looks almost like Sunset in certain ways, and he's absolutely ripping the bag out of it on a 6'4" from JS. So big down carves, John kind of style carves.
Yeah, those look like Margaret River John down carves.
So Jack still looks incredible in this style of wave. So don't.
And the boards look insane.
The boards do look insane. So there's that too, but I still think I just wanted to make a bold prediction, so I'm going against him in Hawaii.
Okay, well,
unless he comes to his senses. Can I share one other thought before we go to who said that?
Of course.
Just because it relates to what we're talking about with these young CT surfers. Yeah. This is a point that I've kind of made, and we've talked about it with John sailing around the world. And we will discuss his YouTube series, VELA. I don't know if you've watched the first 2 episodes of that yet. But, you know, my commentary has kind of been John has been doing his best surfing off tour, chasing the waves, or chasing swell, spending time sailing is probably really informative for your surfing. And then he makes it to these spots and he lights it up and he's surfing better. And that's a continuation of a thought that I've shared for years, which is the CT doesn't allow for radical growth in surfing. It almost like hamstrings the growth in surfing because the judging criteria is based on things that we've seen in the past. If you surf outside the criteria, you don't get rewarded for it. So your progress happens off tour. We see the biggest airs, biggest barrels, all that happening off tour, okay? For a million different reasons. I won't belabor the point here. But Stab Magazine interviewed Caio Abelli. They were talking about when is the right time to retire or give up the dream on chasing the CT. And Caio shared some thoughts that I think further solidify what I was saying. He said initially, quote, initially when you're excited, initially you're so excited to go to these places you've seen so much of, like Fiji or Tahiti. But 90% of the time, you just go to these sick places, but you get crappy waves. You actually don't surf that much on tour. So you're somewhere like Bells for 2 weeks, and there's only really going to be waves for 3 or 4 days of that 2 weeks. So you make the most of your time. You're just sitting there on the couch or you're playing golf, and traveling can be super tough. Not for guys who have big budgets and they can hire people to travel with them and help them out. But when you're doing it by yourself with a tight budget, it is not easy. On the QS, people seem like they get better and better every year. But on the CT, even the most dominant surfers eventually get worse. There's probably a reason. As I said, you don't actually spend a lot of time surfing, and your level can deteriorate. It's not healthy for your surfing. Look at Caleb Robson. He fell off tour, became a beast, and he just punched through the CS no problem and requalified, end quote.
Yeah, that's really insightful. I think there's so much to that to pick apart, but it kind of does come down to there's a gap between the elite, and I mean fiscally elite, and the lower middle class on the CT, the ones that don't have the finances to bring an entire squad that's going to basically keep you focused. And it's funny he mentioned, oh, we can play golf, You know who should be playing golf on the CT when there's no waves?
Who?
Those guys that are financially elite. Because they've got a crew that's like, okay, you're golfing, that's fine. When you get back from golfing, we're going to make sure your diet's right. We're going to give you your massage, and you're going to go in the hot tub, and you're going to do a cold plunge, and we got you lined up for this and that, and here we go, and the coach is going, okay, cool. One day of golf is fine, but the guys that are just like on their own, they're like, I don't know, let's play 18, and then they play 18, and they're like, let's go to the pub. And then they go, and then,
Yeah.
So they're just not, they don't have the squad, the team, the apparatus that's there. And I think there is a pretty big gap between the elite and then those that don't have that.
Well, I think the other interesting thing is just time in the water. Like Caio's saying, you're going to Bells, but you're not you're there for 2 weeks and you're not surfing that much. And then when the waves are good, it's hyper competitive out there, The alternative being using your prime athletic surfing years, chasing good waves around the world. And where would you see more progress for any of these surfers? Any of these surfers in the prime, Caleb Robson to John to Gabriel. If you use your prime decade of surfing life, chasing the best waves around the world, or going somewhere for 2 weeks and surfing 3 days, where will you see more progress?
Well, I agree, but let me tease that a bit, because I think if you are in the elite, you're so prepared for your time when you do get in the water that you're way more dialed than the guy that played 36 holes of golf and went to the pub and then are like, oh yeah, actually there's some waves today. Let's go try to get a few amongst the other 32 guys. I personally think less surfing is probably better for your freshness, for your first of all, you're stoked to be out there because you haven't surfed in a couple of days. And if you're managed properly and you're getting the right diet and the right everything else I mentioned, you're going to make the most of that time. And I think you're going to be, fresh.
I like that philosophy. I think that works well for me too. Like with surfing is surfing every single day. I'm not really seeing any progress. It just becomes monotonous. But once you take 5 or 6 days off, you come back and you're somehow surfing better. So I've found that to be true. The other thing that relates to both your point and my point is the elite surfers then go on a boat trip to Indonesia in between events. And they get to actually surf their brains out and I think push the progress in really good surf. And so when they come back to these events, they can kind of take the foot off the gas and wait and pick their moments and then execute on those moments. Where I think that, you know, the Calum Robsons of the world going back to his local beach break and trying to develop his craft there because he doesn't have a main sponsor budget to go somewhere where there's great surf. That's where you kind of see either a steely determination of the Brazilians who just want it harder than anybody else, want it more than anybody else, or this kind of Midland world-class surfer, but not top 10 surfer.
And in many ways, those Brazilians are sort of their own entourage. Like those 4 or 5 guys are kind of like keeping each other in check. And like if you see Gabe or one of them doing something the right way, they're all kind of doing the same plan. You know, it's not like they're free agent, you know, Caleb Robson's out there going, I don't know, let's play some golf.
Yeah.
Hey, let's take a quick break and we'll come right back.
Okay.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Welcome back to you. Final reminder, I mentioned Survival League. Put Team Spit. If you join, Spit is your promo code / team name.
Yeah, okay.
You don't forget to do that either, Scott.
No, I'm going to do it.
Don't do it right now. Don't do it while we're on air.
Okay, well, I won't do it right now, but I'm doing it.
Also, just kind of a side note, with world kind of events happening with the war in the Middle East, can you imagine Abu Dhabi getting canceled? The Abu Dhabi surf event in Wave Pool.
That might be the only good thing that comes of this war.
It's all the way in October, so we have no idea how things will develop before then. But I know that other sporting organizations have started to cancel things in the Middle East.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It's a
post
tennis
season. Or like something like there's probably events that are being canceled in Abu Dhabi right now.
Not in Abu Dhabi yet, but there was a F1 event canceled in Saudi Arabia, I believe. But I would argue or suggest or be surprised if the WSL isn't looking at alternative venues to kind of lock up for that time zone, October.
I mean, when do you make that call? Like, what's the month where you're like, okay, we're kind of still in sketchy zone. Iran's still firing drones. Probably June, you got to start pulling the plug just to kind of get your logistics lined up.
Yeah, to line up, you need lead time with logistics. So I would get some venues kind of penciled out and then make that call in June. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Also, while we're on the conversation of world travel, we're going to Peru, or I'm going to Peru in August 22nd through the 29th. If you want to join us for 1 week in Chicama, I believe there's still spots available. I haven't checked in a week, but I think that there should be. Waterwaystravel.com organizes this for us. They are the world's premier surf concierge service for anywhere you want to go in the world, but they put together these trips for our listeners, and they do a phenomenal job. Like, we just kind of show up, and they've handled so much of the other, and they juggle things that arise during the trip while we're even on the trip. So they're incredible.
And I got a text from the musical director of our show, actually, Mitch, and he wanted to know what to ride in Chicama. I think he might be signed up. He was inquiring about which boards.
I need to reply to Mitch too. He reached out to me. I've got thoughts.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
It sounds like I'm going to get thrown under the bus with some song that he creates, some parody. That's okay. I'm here for it.
They're the highlight of our show are his parodies. So you should not feel bad about that at all. I haven't started thinking about my boards for Chicama yet. Still focused on Nicaragua first.
I am too. Rusty called me the other day, and we got some boards lined up. I'm pretty excited. And I've been surfing. Yeah, I've been riding a lot of different boards, and it's been a lot of fun.
He'll have those boards ready for you before
I don't know.
1 month's time.
Maybe.
Okay.
I'm not too worried about it.
You had a who said that?
I do. Who said that? This is the section of the show, if you're a listener, where I quote a famous surfer and try to stump David. David tries to guess, and you at home listening or in your car listening, try to stump you too. So I'm going to do a quote, and then there'll be 4 answers that you can choose from, 4 potential answers. Okay, here we go. And I quote, all the surf magazine covers I've got, I've been on more covers than any surfer in the world.
Oh boy.
It's just a gigantic thing, all my press clippings. So after that, I've got everything sectioned off on how much it costs to travel the world, all the expenses, the food costs, the ground transportation, the flying, all of that. So I go to a potential sponsor and I lay it on them. Who said that, David?
Can I guess before you read the multiple choice?
Yeah, for sure.
Liam McNamara. But go ahead and lay out the choices.
That's a great guess. That sounds like something Liam would say.
Love you, Liam.
Liam, lots of mag covers, a lot of Japanese magazine covers, probably.
This is the way that he approached his business. He did have a ton of covers, and I feel like he's even told me this exact thing before. But he had a ton of covers all around the world from magazines you never even heard of.
Yeah.
And he was that methodical and regimented about the business itself. Like he would have a catalog or portfolio and present them and be like, this is how much I'm worth. And as a result, he was making more money than a lot of people in that era.
Yeah.
Anyways, lay out the options for me.
Liam was a competitive bulldog. You know, he would be one of those guys we were talking about who, if he qualified for the CT and he drew Gabe, he'd be like, bring it, let's go, I'm ready.
Totally.
Okay, so here are the 4 options.
Okay.
A, Rory Russell. B, Larry Berleman. C, Jerry Lopez. Or D, Ian Cairns.
Wow. That makes it hard for me. The thing is, who had more covers? Who can lay claim to that legitimately? Jerry? But I don't think he would say that. Ian would say that, but I don't think he's had more covers. Rory would say that, but I don't think he had more covers. Larry could have done both, actually. This is a tough one, Scott. Great choices.
Yeah.
Let's go with Larry Bertleman.
You're correct. That's it. That's right. Larry Berleman.
That was a tough one.
That comes from an interview done in 1979. And it was an interview by Phil Jarrett. And it was Surfer Magazine. 1979. Phil Jarrett interview with Larry Berleman.
So, curious to know if at the time that he said that, he had the most covers of anybody.
I mean, maybe. Surfing Magazine, Surfer Magazine, Trax, SW. Trax was just like a black and white newspaper, though.
I think at that time, you said 79?
Yeah.
So there was probably like a 2-year span, 77, 78, maybe 79, where he had like a run. And he had like 12 covers in that period of time. And so he was definitely, that could have been true, but he was also riding high on his own supply. You know?
Yeah.
No problem.
Well, definitely probably the most famous surfer from the 70s. That's kind of a hard call too, though, when you think about it, because of Lopez. And frankly, back then, surf media was quite bifurcated regionally. I mean, Australia had their trip, we had our trip, and we kind of didn't see the lens. We saw the lens regionally. The prism was regional. You know what I mean?
Totally. Completely, yeah.
Because, I mean, you could argue Michael Peterson probably had more covers than, if you think about Australian media.
Totally. Yeah.
Or, no, not MR yet.
Well, good call. Good pull. Good
Thank
surfer. Good surfer
Thank
doesn't
you.
get a lot of acclaim.
By the way, I bring that up because we have an incredible Larry Bertlemann twin fin in the California Gold Surf Auction that Larry Bertlemann shaped. And it's one of those Coke swirl twin fins, with the Coke swirl and the Town and Country, anything is possible, Larry Bertlemann logo. It's really cool. So all of the 48 lots are now available for preview. If you're interested in checking out what we have, David, you can go to the California Gold Surf Auction website and click on auctions, and you'll see all 48 lots.
Were you a fan of Bertlemann?
Absolutely. That's right in my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
There was kids, everyone that's my age that was a surfer was out on a skateboard doing that whole Stacy Peralta, Dogtown, Tony Alva thing where we were trying to just do roundhouse, Jay Adams, we were trying to do roundhouse cutbacks on our skateboard and surf just the way we saw Larry Bertlemann and Buttons. Those two guys were like, oh man, that's how we want to surf, like we're on our skateboards.
Totally. Yeah. They were before my time, but when I discovered surfing, there was still like great reverence for that a decade prior, And so Buttons, I think, resonated with me more like, I don't know, like his aloha spirit or something is what I really loved. Bertlemann did feel more brash, and that quote, I think, exemplifies that. But that turn and that imagery, especially surfing like Southside, just fun, crystal blue, like waves, just is idyllic.
Yeah, there was a couple of movies that, back then when surf movies came around, it was a huge deal. I mean, that was our only way we got to see these guys in action.
Yeah.
And it was either Style Masters or Many Classic Moments or some Steve Soderbergh film, or I don't think it might have even been Free Ride maybe, but man, there was some really cool footage of Bertlemann and Buttons and Mark Liddell for that matter.
Yeah.
Those
Mark
guys
Liddell gets overlooked.
They would just be full on specific clips from the movie of those guys just going crazy.
Well, you can't overstate how much that did for changing board design, and their style of surfing did for changing board design, and these radical innovations that were made to width and length that brought us to where we are now for modern high performance surfing.
I absolutely agree. I mean, I don't even think you said you can't understand. I think it's completely understated. I agree with you. I
You
think
can't overstate it.
Yeah, you can't overstate it. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, people do point to the Sting design, and like we're aware of
but
it.
Not enough. My point is not enough.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those guys were crushing. So have you watched John's latest YouTube series, the continuation of VELA?
No, I haven't, and I apologize, and I blame my algorithm, which has a lot of Alan Watts and not enough John Florence.
Well, that's fair.
Oh, look, if I go to YouTube randomly, it's right there. It just pulls up, man. They're listening to us.
They are listening. So
Edge of the Ocean.
Edge of the Ocean is episode 1. He's doing 4 episodes, dropping them weekly. I think they're on Wednesdays. And episode 1 was Edge of the Ocean. Episode 2 is called Le Malo. They go through, I don't want to butcher it. Is it Vanuatu? Vanuatu. Thank you. I knew I got that wrong. Vanuatu. And the series is made in conjunction with John and Yeti. Yeti is one of his sponsors. They make incredible films for lots of different things, but a lot of great surf films. So they're partnered up on this project, and they are 15-minute short films of his sailing life and what he's been up to this past year, but punctuated with incredible sessions. So I showed you a clip 2 weeks ago of him ripping the bag out of a perfect head-high right. That was episode 1, Edge of the Ocean, that you just pulled up. Then he sails to this left that is kind of like, I don't know what to even, it's kind of like a mini Kandui, maybe. It's got a ledge on it. Like there's kind of an easier takeoff, and then it's going into a wedge slab. But he puts on an absolute clinic. Like John, you watch it, you feel he is the greatest surfer in the world in his prime, doing exactly what you would do if you were the greatest surfer in the world, which is set sail with your family and go surf empty perfect waves.
Well, it certainly is idyllic, the stuff I'm watching now from Edge of the Ocean, John's YouTube channel. And I'm watching the left-handers pour through, and I'm about to watch his session. But I want to say this because you brought up something earlier. And, you know, you were basically kind of reiterating how wonderful it is that John gets to travel around, and that the CT doesn't offer this opportunity for pro surfers. That the CT hampers or pushes down the level of surfing that a top surfer can do because of the constraints. And I agree, by the way, you're right. But let me just say that what this does, this traveling around the world thing does, is it doesn't offer the pro surfer a chance to be the world champion. And I think they're just two different things. Like to suggest that one's better than the other is apples and oranges. If you're in your heart, you want to be the world champion, the best surfer in the world, which at some point most young surfers want to be. You know, I'm going to generalize, but I'm assuming that most young surfers want to be a world champion. And there's a number of reasons for that. One is because that was the path to making money and being a pro surfer, and you had to do that. And if that's your goal because you want to surf forever, I'm not sure you're going to be a world champion. I think your goal has to be a world champion for the sake of being a world champion, not because you want to like live this incredible idyllic life. Because I think eventually you find out, like Kaio did, that, oh, it's not that idyllic. I'd rather be on a boat. But to get on the boat, you kind of got to go through this prism over here. Not, maybe you're going to argue not so much anymore, but they're just two different things. I just wanted to state that I think chasing a world champion and being the number one competitive professional surfer in the world is something that's worthy, and it harkens me back to Rabbit Bartholomew. Like, that's what they wanted. And it's totally different and neither better nor worse than what John's doing.
Well, I have additional points. I don't know that these are arguments against anything you said, but first, it's worth stating John already has 3 world titles, so he gets to do the best of both worlds.
Right.
And I would say he also won those titles, maybe the first 2, without really bending and conceding to the constraints. It was his talent. His talent was so robust that it was undeniable, you know? And then the third one, I think he did have to kind of figure out a competitive game to win at the game rather than just relying on his surfing. But the additional point is, you said most young surfers want to win a world title. I think that's just not true. I think the vast majority of surfers on the planet could not care less about winning a world title themselves or even watching competitive surfing. Surfing as a pursuit has very little to do with competing or, you know,
I agree.
Let
me just chime in while I can. I think if you're competitive by nature and surfing is what you do the best and or what you're most passionate about, you're going to want to be the best competitor at what you're passionate about. I don't agree that most surfers don't want to be world champion. I don't agree. I think that in our very nature, we're competitive. I think we're competitive. Now, sure, there's going to be the Craig Andersons of the world, you know, and maybe they got a sour taste in their mouth their first couple of years trying to compete, and they're like, this isn't for me, and that's fine and great. But I think that most young surfers do want to be world champion.
Okay. We will remain divided on that one.
Let me say this, though. And by the way, you know, these are pretty big generalizations. But watching John here, and I want to ask you this question. When you watch John in this wonderful YouTube series, my sense is because he has 3 world titles, it makes it better. I'm looking at it like, this guy's got 3 world titles and he's living the dream. Whereas, like, let's just say it's, I don't know, Creed McTaggart or somebody, just some free surfer that rips. And you're watching this. Maybe it's subconscious, but it's not quite as good as watching the 3-time world champion do his thing.
I agree. And I think why John is so appealing to us is that he has navigated the career really deftly. Like when he was in his 20s, that was the focus. The competitive thing was, prior to his 20s, developing the craft was the focus and the art of it. And so once he got to that level where the talent was undeniable, joining the World Tour and proving it to everybody else became the focus. But he didn't overstay his welcome, like we see so many people trying to do and then getting knocked out of the system. He won a world title, dropped the mic, went to go do the next thing that he wanted to do and that he had been wanting to do. And by the way, along the way, got married and had a kid, which is also shows kind of a more well-rounded focus of interests. So him then doing what he's doing at this stage, I think, is servicing the original goal, which is developing the craft. So I don't think there is a better way to develop the craft at this phase in life than the way that he's doing it.
I agree with you.
He would be regressing if he was on tour, and also it would be a not great lifestyle for the wife and kid. So them getting to go out and explore the world with him is keeping his priorities straight too.
I totally agree with you. And we have here something very special, and that's John Florence. And everything about his life as a surfer is magnificent. There's nothing that, it's like he's nailed every part of it. You know what I mean? And in some regard, he was wronged on tour. Like, he probably should have had 4 world titles. And of course he was injured a few times. But my suggestion is, I think you agree, is, like, these clips are better because of it, as opposed to like Dion Aegis or whoever. Like, and your suggestion that, hey, if you're 22 years old and you're Levi Slauson, for instance, why not just bail out, get on a sailboat, and travel around and make clips? And that might be great and all that, and I'd watch him. But for some reason, the fact that John's got 3 world titles makes his clips in this remote location 10 times better.
So Levi Slauson probably can't afford the $1 million boat.
I'm assuming he could, though. I mean, let's just say that the finances are there.
Well, so we have an example of that already does exist, so we don't have to manufacture one, and
Torren?
that's Torren Martyn.
Right.
Yeah, Torren's doing it on the cheap with his own boats. He's got a new movie coming out in a few weeks where he does it actually on a, it's not a kayak, it's like a dual hull kayak thing with a sail on it around New Zealand. So he's doing it his own version, but not surfing to the level of John. Yeah. But still
not as good.
But you watched his last film on the sailboat, Calypti, and it's not as good as John's, but it's still, incredible in its own way.
If he had 3 world titles, you'd be that much more stoked on it.
Yeah, totally. A different level of commitment from him, for sure, and different level of talent. I agree with your point. I'm not arguing against your point.
It is kind of apples and oranges, though, because Torren's movies are incredible. Yeah. And part of that is his partner in filmmaking that did such a great job. Ishka
Folkwell. Anyways, back to VELA. That we discussed episode 1. Watch that backside barrel riding clinic and just take notes. It is magnificent. But then episode 2, to further our love of John, his brothers join him. So you got Ivan and Nathan, and they find a couple of waves as well. And I'm like, who has a better relationship with their brothers? And who, even if you have a good relationship with your brothers, who gets to do this cool stuff with their brothers? Like, in the ocean, having fun, world-class surfers all in their own right, surfing, empty surf by yourself in the middle of the ocean on your brother's $1 million sailboat. Those guys are killing it.
Like you said, I mean, like we all know, this guy's special on a bunch of different, like he's kind of nailing everything, The one thing that's most kind of interesting to me, I guess, on some level, I don't know why, but God, this left, I'm watching it. It's insane.
Are you on episode 1 still?
Huh?
Episode 1?
Yeah.
Edge of the Ocean.
I just fast forwarded to the left and I'm watching the left. And maybe this is like none of my business, which is probably the case, but I'm interested to know if there's reconciliation in his life with his father.
Ooh.
Because he's done, like, he's so incredible. Like, you get the sense that his son probably is already reading and stuff. Like, he's, you know what I mean? He's probably listening to Mozart. He's, you know, John Florence is the whole Florence clan is just incredible. But certainly that side of it, which is none of my business or none of our business, it's highly personal. But, you know, it doesn't, because he's putting his life in front of us, it makes me want to examine that part of it.
So Nathan Florence did a vlog a year or two ago where he actually addresses this and meets with his dad and stuff like that. And it seems like there is some sort of reconciliation.
Yeah.
I did not watch it. I don't follow his vlog that closely, but a couple of people reached out and mentioned it. Now,
Let me just interrupt real quick and say that just makes it that much better, right? That there's also forgiveness in his heart is just incredible. Like that's kind of where I just like just you telling me that, and I know it was Nathan, not John, but the fact that there's forgiveness and that he's willing to, you know, have that reconciliation just adds even more to the wonderment.
Yeah. Give me 1 second. I'm going to stop the recording and then restart. I agree. But then an additional thing is when I was young, up until, I don't know, fairly recently, I always felt like the kind of best chance you have at developing into a functioning member of society, contributing member, fully formed human being is mom and dad at home, you know? And what I think the modern world has taught me is that there's a lot of other options that work equally well. And it seems like despite that missing from their lifestyles, from their lives growing up, they all developed into great human beings, contributing members of society. And obviously they've got an incredible mother. But it seems like the community of the North Shore operates as it's a village's responsibility to help raise the child. It takes a village to raise a child. And they've all, when you hear the pride that they have for those boys, you know, it seems like they all think of him and them as their own son. And so for whatever was missing from their youth and their upbringing, I think was made up for in other ways.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. There's something special about that, right? That community there that sort of took on the role of the paternal figure.
Yeah. So bravo to them, and kudos, and thanks for sharing it with us. And episode 2 also, kind of along these lines, highlights the local kids on the island chain that they are visiting and showcases them surfing and giving back and all that sort of thing. So community.
Well, good stuff. I'm gonna check that out too.
It's super good. Everybody go watch. Look, that is not even my must-see moment presented by Trees Wax, even though you would think that it would be.
Yeah. That's weird.
It is weird. It is worthy.
I have one other little item. I don't know if you...
Yeah.
I just wanted to get your thoughts on it. Stab did an interview with Shane Dorian, which of course you can't get enough Shane Dorian. He's another guy that is pretty incredible. But they made a statement which I think is interesting.
Okay.
And Stab said they just flat out stated that Shane Dorian is the greatest big wave surfer of all time. And frankly, I would agree with them. I on its face, I think that's valid. And I think as we dig deeper, which is kind of what I want you to do, I ask you that same question. Is Shane Dorian the greatest big wave surfer of all time, as Stab Magazine has said? Yes or no?
On just first blush, yes.
That's kind of how I took it too. But let me throw some names at you.
Okay.
Understanding that the pioneers of big wave surfing led the way for where Dorian is. What about Greg Noll, the greatest big wave surfer of all time? The guy who paddled out at Waimea the very first day it was ridden.
No.
Led the charge.
No.
Rode what's Okay.
I mean,
How about this?
absolutely like a worthy
Yeah,
name to discuss.
in the top 5. Yeah. Okay.
But the amount that it's the variety of waves that are now available and the amount that it's all progressed, it's very, very difficult to compare the two.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of like comparing Michael Jordan to Oscar Robertson or somebody. They're just two different eras, and
It's two
but
different
what you
sports.
can't do is deny the coattails that these next generation of guys rode in on, and Greg Noll certainly laid some of those coattails down and offered, the ability for these new guys to come. What about Laird Hamilton? Laird Hamilton, the greatest big wave surfer of all time.
Definitely a worthy discussion also, but I feel like he falls more into the pioneer category and innovator category, but the style of surfing that he was doing, I feel like isn't at the same level as the Shane Dorians. Like Laird charged, but I never saw him taking off as deep, as late, all that kind of critical element, I think sets Shane apart.
So the paddle in at Jaws is kind of where you're seeing a differentiation.
Even backdoor, like
Differentiate.
I've never seen Laird surf Waimea,
Yeah.
maybe it is a specific to paddling. But I mean, even when he was surfing like big North Shore waves back in the 80s and 90s, he was charging, but he wasn't setting the performance standard.
What about, here's a random one, Jeff Clark, pioneer, surfed Mavericks all by himself for maybe 10 or 15 years.
Yeah.
Greatest big wave surfer of all time.
No, absolute pioneer, but he was not the top performer at Mavericks even.
What about Greg Long?
That would be the most reasonable counter to Shane. I think Greg proved it in a lot of different ways that he was the best for a period of time.
Okay, well, I've got one that I think if you looked at the results, would outshine Greg Long, and that's Twiggy.
Oh.
Twiggy's got some massive competitive accolades.
Yeah. Twiggy versus Shane would be a toe-to-toe battle.
Yeah.
The other obvious one would be Kai Lenny.
Right.
Kai Lenny, I think, and he will be going for a lot longer. I mean, Shane's done it for 30 years now, I guess. Not specific to big waves, maybe specific to big waves for 20 years, but Kai's still at the beginning of his game, so he'll be around for a long time. And
what's interesting about Kai is he sort of takes the pioneering tech side of Laird and merges it with what Shane Dorian, like he's kind of the whole thing.
Yeah, he is. I think if you took their top 10, quote, big wave clips, Kai might trounce Shane.
Yeah, I don't know if, and that's an interesting way to look at it. And that might be the best way to look at it. I'm not sure if it's the best way to look at it. I think in some regards, this is one of those things where you start with your gut and you end with your gut. You start with your gut, then you pick it apart, you tease it, you look at the nuances of it all, and then you kind of go, well, it's still Shane Dorian.
I think Shane is hard to argue against because you can kind of analyze it from a bunch of different angles, and he's in the conversation from every angle. The Laird Hamilton, he's not included in the Waimea conversation. The Greg Long,
first of all, Waimea is, I don't even think that's a worthy.
As a big wave?
I just don't think that. I just don't think Waimea. I'm not saying it's not an incredibly gnarly big wave, but Laird Hamilton's like, I'm not going to paddle out at some soft 30-foot wave with 45, 60 dudes when I can go surf Jaws with nobody. You know what I mean? Jaws is much gnarlier than Waimea Bay. By the way, that's just I'm not a big wave surfer. I don't know, but that's my gut as an end user consumer of the content.
Has Laird ever even been invited to an Eddy?
That's a good point, and that could be political.
So
I think it is political. I think the surf industry, the Quicksilver at the time, they were trying to move away from Laird. Laird was getting too much attention, and they weren't in the surf industry, the attention he was getting.
So Greg Long, again, analyzing it from different angles, the criticism of Greg Long is he's the paddle-in purist. But again, have you seen him, have you seen him in a toe-in situation? So he's limited to paddle days.
At Cortez, maybe, or no?
I've never even seen him get towed in. I mean, I can't remember seeing him get towed in.
Yeah.
So that's where Shane kind of fits every version of this conversation and why he might come out on top. And then again, Kai Lenny, we've seen paddle, we've seen him tow, we've seen him kite, we've seen him do all of it at all the different spots, really. I mean, certainly most dominant at Jaws, but we've seen him do it at a lot of different spots too. So versatility and progression.
Okay, well, I just wanted to bring that up.
Okay, nobody mentioned Garrett McNamara.
Oh, wow. That's my bad. And you know what? He's got to be in the list. It kind of comes down to who's your top five. Who's your top five? Not even numbered, just five of the best. Who are the best? It doesn't have to be 1 through 5. It's just 5 people.
The funny thing is, Garrett wouldn't even be included in the conversation if it wasn't for HBO.
Yeah.
He'd get dismissed in every version of the conversation up until they kind of gave him his flowers.
Garrett might be the most interesting.
Yeah, I like it.
That's why his show's so good.
Well, must-see moment presented by Treeswax. Treeswax.com. Use promo code SPIT to get 20% off and an online money-back guarantee. This is coming off of my Todd Morecom submission from last week at Puerto Escondido. I was like, sometimes the old timers just did it best. Well, Liam McNamara posted this clip of Randall Paulson at Pipeline the other day, and I was like, I haven't seen a wave that well surfed at Pipeline in years.
Yeah.
You ready? Did you see this, or are you ready?
No, I'm ready. I'm a fan. I think Randall's
Paulson,
a lifeguard there.
Yeah, Randall on a double or a second reefer way out the back that just absolutely closes out on the first reef.
Yeah.
And he doggy doors it.
That was insane.
Makes the closeout. It's going slow-mo. I'm going to show you full speed again just because. But I mean, that is taking off in the OG zone. Like, there's not a lot of guys that sit back there, and this thing absolutely kegged. And it's a legit closeout that he somehow makes. What do you think, Scott?
It's amazing, right? I mean, when it hits the first reef and just throws, and he's way behind it, and he's way committed. He's got a nice high line, but he kind of points down. Then he puts his inside edge in there. Now he's just driving, and how he makes it through that section is mental.
And it's a legit closeout.
Yeah.
And he snuck out the doggy door in incredible fashion. So Randall Paulson, thank you.
That's
reminding us the way that it could be done out there. And I checked him out on Instagram. He's still charging pipe, and he's riding AJWs.
Yeah, and I mentioned earlier, isn't he a lifeguard there?
Yeah, I think he was. I don't know if he still is.
He was always a dark horse that would provide, and somebody that could slay some of the best. When they had wild cards or at the Volcom Pipe Pro or whatever, he was somebody to be reckoned with.
Well, when it's big West Swell pipe, I mean, exactly. I wouldn't expect he's sitting on that, second reef section. I wouldn't expect him to be going on backdoor or anything like that. But when it was big and like that, he would absolutely be a guy. And then, of course, shout out to AJW Surfboards, because I feel like he's got his finger on the pulse, and he's often got like these kind of underground chargers on the roster that he's flowing boards to that are just quietly dominating different places around the world.
Yeah, Adam. Good work, Adam.
Yeah, great to see it. So anyways, Treeswax, must-see moment. Thank you very much, Treeswax. I didn't mention it, but Surfrider Foundation is always with us as well. So surfrider.org, please become a member. There are insane things happening in terms of current administration just opened up a pipeline in Santa Barbara, an oil pipeline that has already spilled 125,000 gallons of oil into the ocean. And they just reopened it up because guess what? Oil makes money for certain people. at the detriment of the vast populace. So there's wild things, but Surfrider is wholly committed to fighting at every level. So become a member, surfrider.org.
Yeah. If you love the ocean, become a member of Surfrider.
We need the ocean to exist, for us to exist. So one final thought, Duke of the Week. We sometimes forget it, and but we've got a real legit Duke this week. Would you like to see the video?
Of course.
All right. Share your screen. So this was at a WSA event, I believe, in Oceanside. There was a father and daughter who were swimming, and they actually got stuck and couldn't swim in. They were struggling to keep their head above water. And there's a local coach and surfer named Lucas Taub who was coaching one of his kids. He jumped off the jetty fully clothed and rescued the father and daughter. Have you seen this video? You have?
Yeah, I'm watching it now. It's
Okay.
it's interesting because he needs to take the daughter and put her in a cross chest carry and get her off of his. The daughter's going to drown the dad.
Yeah. Scott's criticizing the heroes.
No, I'm not criticizing. He did good, but I mean, if you were to look, the guy's a hero. I'm not trying. Good for him. That's amazing that he saved her. I just think that, if we were to look at the proper way to do this, it probably was to get her off of the dad's neck.
Lucas, take that advice from Scott next time you're in
No,
this situation.
Lucas, you're a full-on hero. I'm just
So this
maybe
dad-
I'm wrong. I'm probably wrong.
No, you're
but
right.
I mean,
You're right. I'm just saying, when you're in the heat of the moment, you have no lifeguard training and you see somebody drowning. He went out and he executed the goal, which was to save this couple. Look, they weren't even that far out. They just couldn't touch. And the dad's out of shape. And the dad is probably panicked, and his daughter's panicked. So she's gripping him around his neck, and he cannot swim with his daughter gripping him. So Lucas jumped off the jetty, fully clothed, and pushed them towards shallower water at the jetty, and then they climb up the barnacle infested jetty, which they probably got sliced up.
Oh, yeah.
But look, they're panicked. They're ill
No,
equipped.
for sure. This is amazing and good for Lucas. And
They're
frankly,
panicked.
I'm kind of disappointed in the other people standing by. Why weren't more people in the water?
Well, they're not far enough out to where you would even think like that they would be in harm's way. But again, when panic sets in and you're not familiar with the ocean, that's where things go wrong. And so that dad was in that position, and the
It
daughter.
does
of
look
course,
like somebody with a surfboard does show up there at the
Yeah.
end. You can kind of barely see him, but that's good to know too.
Well, the other thing is these things happen so quickly that you don't even realize it's a life-threatening situation. But Lucas happened too, because he was up there coaching. By the way,
Well,
Lucas,
by this jetty, there's a thing. It's a standing rip current, and it's going to occur at low tide, especially during south swells. And there's a standing rip current where I surf all the time, and it really shows up on south swells. And I mean, I literally watch people walk down with their boogie boards, and I just say to myself, give them 8 minutes, and that's going to be a rescue. And sure enough, boom, they're in the rip and they're gonzo. And before you know it, the sure sign of somebody that's on a boogie board that's in a rip is when they get off of their board, when they push their board away and start swimming, that's when you know they're in deep trouble and you got to go. So better to get to them before they get off their board and just tell them what's up.
yeah. Well, Lucas Taub, hero of the week. And by the way, I've gone on a surf trip with Lucas to.
Oh, good.
Yeah, somewhere, I forget where. Might have been Costa Rica. It was Central America. It might have been Costa Rica like 10, 15 years ago. Really great surfer. And he's now transitioned his own surfing into coaching. He works for Westcliff University as the coach for the surf team, which is a private university in Irvine, and then also coaches a bunch of young up-and-coming Groms for the contest circuit. So Lucas, shout out, Duke of the Week. Incredible work. Way to stay alert and vigilant.
Yeah, guys. Well, look, David, we've said a lot. Lots been talked about. Discussion was had. You and I discourse back and forth. Until next time, adios and aloha.